Hello and welcome back. In the previous lesson, we discussed Amazon Machine Images and made our selection of the Amazon Linux AMI. We have now moved on to step 2, in which we have to choose an instance type. So let's dive in here in the Orion papers into instance types and learn a little bit more about what these are so we can make a proper selection. So instance types describe the hardware components that an EC2 instance will run on, meaning the compute power, the processor or the virtual CPU, memory meaning RAM, storage options or optimizations, we're talking now about the instance's hard drive, and also network performance, meaning what type of bandwidth will the instance have. Now, we have to understand, as we talked about with virtualization, that these are virtual hardware components, meaning that AWS, through the Zen hypervisor, is virtually assigning what these components are. Now, as an architect, it is important to use the proper instance type to handle your application's workload. So there's going to be smaller instance types and larger instance types. There's going to be instance types with more memory or less memory, ones that are geared more for GPU usage and ones that are geared more for CPU usage, others with high bandwidth and others with lower bandwidth. So there is a collection of pre-configured instance types that are grouped into families and types that you can choose from. So I have a list here and we can see what the type and the families are and a couple of notes about what they're generally used for, but we can also just view them all here. So if we see here, if we look at a family, meaning general purpose, the type T2 micro, we can see for that how many virtual CPUs it has. It has one. How much memory does it have? It has 1 gigabyte. What is the type of instance storage? Here being EBS only, that's going to be the only option. Is it EBS optimized? The answer to that is no, and we'll talk about what that means during the storage lesson of this section. Also, network performance. This is going to be the bandwidth. This means that it has a low to moderate amount of bandwidth, and you can always just mouse over any of these indicators here to bring up more information about what these items are. Then there's also, does the instance type support IPv6? So if you like, you can spend some time here scrolling up and down, viewing the different types of instance types and seeing what their different capacities are. So you see here we have general purpose, compute optimized, GPU optimized, memory optimized, and you see something for memory optimized, it's going to have a lot more available RAM. So for an R4.16 extra large, it has 488 gigabytes of available RAM. That is going to be much higher than, say, the most that you can have in a T2, which is just for general purpose, which the maximum you can have in any T2 is going to be 32 gigabytes of memory. So you'll see as you kind of look through how all of these are organized and grouped into these types and families, and how these different components are weighted more heavily or less depending on which one you select. So this is very important to understand, because as you're looking to choose the right type of instance for your application, you have to understand what are the requirements of your application. For instance, if you are doing something with machine learning or high performance databases or a lot of rendering, you're going to want something that is a GPU optimized instance type. So you can choose a G2 or P2 type. Now, for the purposes of this course, we're going to be working with the T2 micro because this is one that is free tier eligible. So to select this instance type, all you need to do is make sure it's checked here and then click on Configure Instance Details, and we'll move on to the next step. So that is a quick review of instance types. And again, just remember that it is extremely important to understand the requirements of your application so that you can correctly choose an instance type that will meet those needs. So that will conclude this section on instance types, and next we're going to move into configuration details and talk about IP addressing, and after that, user data. So for now, you can complete this lesson. Thank you for watching. You may now move on.